Recently, I went to dinner with my grandma, and when I got home, I had to pee so bad. Um, I have a point, so stick with me, okay? After I got in the house and put my leftovers away, my order of operations became number one, find my phone, and number two, go to the bathroom. So I began looking everywhere for my phone. I went to the kitchen because maybe I set it down with my purse, but it wasn't there. I went to my room because maybe I set it down on my bed. I even went back to the kitchen because maybe I just hallucinated going there in the first place. I went to the bathroom because maybe I set it down knowing that I soon would have to pee and wanted it there for my convenience. I do that sometimes. As I stood there in the bathroom staring at the toilet with my full bladder, I felt weird. Mostly because I had to pee, but also because in order for me to go to the bathroom, which is one of my vital tasks of life, was now contingent upon me having a device so that I wouldn't have to think independently for 30 seconds. My phone was in the car, by the way. I found it after my bathroom existential crisis, but this feeling was weird and I wanted to talk about it. In this video, I'm making me. I've made a lot of other dolls before in the past, but I've never made a video about it. So I figured I would make me as my first video. So you're going to hear me rambling about phone addiction and screen time usage while you watch me make this doll, this little mini me, and you're going to like it. One of the battles I've been facing for probably 5 years now is my crippling screen addiction. And gathering from the people around me, I don't think I'm alone in this. Several of my friends have complained about how they feel like technology is consuming their lives, how they can't focus on what they want to, and how they spend time they would rather spend doing literally anything else on their phones. So, because Instagram doesn't allow you to disable Reels, I was faced with the difficult decision, do I keep it or do I delete it? On one side, if I decided to delete it, I would be free of the distraction and temptation of an endless scroll on my phone. Since I no longer have this on my phone, I will, in turn, do something I enjoy much more, like writing, drawing, or making things. On the other hand, if I keep Instagram, I will be able to easily connect with my friends. I can see what the other people my age are referencing, know about trends, and mostly not miss what my friends are sending me. I also have online friends who I only communicate with on social media. Do I run the risk of losing this friendship in attempts to disconnect? I fought this internal battle for years. I assumed it was a self discipline problem. I got several screen time apps, all of which I ended up overriding. I tried putting my phone in a box, and I even activated a flip phone, but none of these felt sustainable. I'm too dependent on technology for that. In 2023, I was really battling this. I assumed I had some kind of attention deficit disorder because I spent all my time on my phone and it was the only thing I could focus on. But during a vacation, I picked up a book and I finished it in a week. There are a couple things that are interesting about this. Number one, I was able to read a book. I felt like this was something I haven't been able to do since I was a kid, and I will talk about this a little bit more. So if you want to know how I did it, you have to watch till that part. Second, the book was Stolen Focus by Johann Hari. This book changed my life. I highly recommend checking it out since I'm only going to discuss it briefly. But Stolen Focus, Why You Can't Pay Attention and How to Think Deeply Again, opens with Harry exploring a conundrum similar to mine. He couldn't focus, blamed technology, and got rid of it. Throughout the book, he explores his journey of taking a month away to live by the sea. The only device he had was a broken laptop for writing. He also replaced all of the functions of his phone with separate devices, a watch, an alarm clock, and an iPod for music. He dumped his life and lived offline. At the time I read this, I thought he was living out my dream. I wished I could disconnect from everything and just live. It didn't take long into the book for Johann to realize why this was not only unsustainable, but also isolating. The world around him was online. He disconnected from his family and friends and was living without the convenience of communication in attempts to be more productive. And this sounds more dystopian than before, sacrificing being social for work. I think this is a great time for me to talk about one of my favorite topics ever: community. Like dogs and primates, humans are a social species. We need community to thrive. As a social species, what we experience socially can have a large impact on us. An interesting paper explains how socially induced stress can affect immune function, disease susceptibility, and lifespan. This isn't totally related to screen addiction, but I wanted to throw in a little fun fact. Stress is one result of society we endure, but what about isolation? The CDC will recognize isolation and loneliness as a serious threat to mental and physical health, claiming that those who experience social isolation and loneliness can be at higher risk for heart disease and stroke, type 2 diabetes, anxiety, depression, suicidality and self harm, dementia, and even earlier death, none of which are ideal. So, the solution to Johan's problem was to get right back on social media and forget the whole thing ever happened, is what I wish I could say. The actual solution to his problem is don't go live on the beach in a town where you don't know anyone without any form of communication with your social support system. He actually talks about feeling the best when he is in a local bar and having fun with those around him. Another interesting paper talks about how excessive screen time can actually lead to worse mental and physical health. It comes as no surprise they discuss a correlation between eye strain and screen time, but what is less obvious is the correlation between screen time and mood disorders. They also discuss how screen time can affect sleep, which can result in sleep deprivation and in turn make someone more susceptible to mood disorders. What I have always found difficult to track with these studies is the idea of reverse causation. Are people more likely to have mood disorders because they have an inflated screen time, or is the screen time a coping mechanism for the mood disorder? For the sake of this video, I'm going to say it could be either or both, but whether you are spending time on social media to relieve symptoms of anxiety or depression, or if being on social media makes you feel depressed or anxious, we can say social media is not helping. A study of over 1,700 US adults between ages 19 and 32 found that those in the study with higher social media use felt more isolated. Their research paper discusses how some people may substitute face to face interaction for interactions online, increasing a feeling of isolation. They also discuss how frequent exposure to highly distilled, unrealistic portrayals on social media may give people the impression that others are living happier, more connected lives, and this may in turn make users feel more socially isolated in comparison. So now we have something to think about. You want to be social. Social media is a social platform, but social media takes time away from spending time with others. So you remove social media to be more social, and then you feel socially isolated. How do you escape from this? This is a horrible cycle. What is important to note about this cycle is it's by design. It's almost like they're saying, look, instead of having one friend, you can have 12,000 friends and be around them all the time on our website. Tech companies, by no surprise, also find ways to keep you on the platform as long as possible so you can be exposed to as much advertising as possible. This is their business model. What's actually funny about this is when I went to look this up, I just searched tech companies intentionally addictive, and the Google AI basically said, yep, and here's how we do it. I thought they would try a little bit harder to keep that under wraps, but I don't mind, made my job easier. It makes me feel really gross when I think about this and makes me never want to be on any of these platforms ever again. I also want to mention some of the ways these platforms are addictive. Johann Hari discusses these a lot in his book. Infinite scroll. This is the worst in my opinion. You can scroll for forever and you will never find what you are looking for. This process feels, to me, when I'm mindlessly scrolling, like a form of dissociation. I am scrolling because I am not thinking about what I am consuming. When I take time to really think about each video I watch, I always land on the same thought: this is garbage. Why am I watching this? This isn't meant as a diss to any of the creators, but most of the videos I feel like I see are not made with the intent I feel a real creative puts into their videos. I like the word slop for describing these videos. Every now and then, though, I will find a video that makes me audibly laugh. I love finding a video that I can quote or watch several times and still enjoy. but I would say these are maybe 1% of the videos I find. Finding a video like this almost feels worse than if all of the videos were slop. Let's say you find a video that really makes you laugh. You watch it, you enjoy it, and you scroll. Now, while you are scrolling, you are essentially seeking out another video that makes you laugh. Because this happens so infrequently, you are just endlessly scrolling, chasing a high you had once before. To me, explaining scrolling like this makes it sound very similar to a loop someone struggling with gambling could experience. When gambling, you win very rarely. If you win early on into gambling, you can experience this rush of excitement and try to replicate it, only to be met with disappointment. Obviously, gambling and scrolling are two very different problems. I just wanted to make an analogy to an addiction more commonly recognized. To explain this a little bit more rooted in science, let's talk about Pavlov's dogs. For those of you unfamiliar with the theory, I will give a brief overview. Ivan Pavlov was a neurologist and physiologist who was conducting a study with dogs, and during the study, the dogs would be fed, and before the food was brought out, a bell would be rung. Pavlov noticed the dogs would salivate not when they saw the food, but when they heard the bell ring. This brings us to classical conditioning. The dogs would salivate in response to the bell because the bell in their minds was associated with food. What might be a little bit confusing by this point is how this relates to scrolling, and don't worry, I'll get there. If you only get a good video every so often, like I said before, how can you be conditioned to associate good feelings with the act of scrolling? Well, what is less commonly known about Pavlov's theory is what I like to call the Pavlov expansion pact. It really is just random partial reinforcement, but let me call it what I want. In the example of Pavlov's dogs, this would be giving the dogs food only some of the times they heard the bell ring. This random schedule of when the reward is delivered was found to create a stronger association than if the reward were delivered consistently. This seems counterintuitive, so here is how I like to think of it. If the dogs were always fed after the sound of the bell, they will associate the bell with being fed. But if the food is no longer presented with the sound of the bell, the dogs will soon lose the association and no longer think they will get fed when the bell is rung. If, instead of stopping altogether, the food was presented some of the times the bell was rung, the brain is going to hold on to this association and is more likely to remember it for longer. I hate to think I have been Pavloved into enjoying scrolling, but I think that is exactly how it is. I get rewarded with a little giggle at random when I scroll, so I associate the scroll with a little giggle. Rewards. Outside of being rewarded with a laugh every now and again, these platforms are also designed to be a numbers game if you are creating content. Rewarding you with likes, showing how many followers you have, and displaying the number of views on videos makes you want to get as many as you can. This game comes with the illusion that spending more time on the platforms will in turn reward you with more followers, likes, and views. This also becomes a social game. When I post better content, people like it more, and then people like me more. When you post, you are also more likely to go on the app to check the performance of the post. If they can get you on the app, they can get you to stay on the app. This brings me to the last thing I want to bring up: notifications. I know I am not the only one who got so many notifications from Instagram that I had to go in and turn them off. Notifications from people going live, who I should follow, what someone I know commented on a post from someone else that I follow. It drove me insane. And these notifications are with intention. If they can interrupt what you are doing to remind you the platform exists, maybe they can pull you away and convince you to stay a little while. I also noticed, because I have multiple accounts, that if I am switching from one to another, it will tell me the account I'm not on has one message. I will open this account to see what the message is, and alas, I have none. Then, when I'm going to check the other accounts, it will tell me that the one I was just on has a notification. This keeps happening no matter how many times I check. If you watched to this point in the video, I am assuming you want to know my secrets. How did I read an entire book in a week? Was it because I did a crazy social media detox? No. It was because I was relaxed. I mentioned before that I bought this book while I was on vacation. I was staying with my grandma in a beautiful forest. I didn't have to go to work and I didn't have any school assignments. I could just relax. If you were wanting to hear what I had to say because you were looking for a real secret into how to trick yourself into doing hobbies instead of spending time on social media, I'm sorry, but I don't have a catch all solution. These problems are so deeply rooted, it is impossible for an individual to fix them. Social media and technology is so deeply engraved everywhere that removing it from your life will leave you isolated, just like it did to Johann Hari. What I can share are realistic ideas you can try that have helped me a little bit with social media management, and hopefully you can take something away from this. Surprisingly, out of sight, out of mind works really well on me like I'm a newborn baby. I feel more distracted from a task at hand when my phone is just in my eyesight. It was written that just the presence of a phone can be distracting. They explain how the presence of a smartphone is something you will subconsciously think about. The device itself contains so many stimuli that having it available is constantly reminding you about its functions, limiting how much you are actually thinking about what is in front of you. Because of this, try moving your phone out of your eyesight when you are trying to work on something or do something without being distracted. It seems simple, but I find I have been more productive when I just cover my phone with an extra notebook so it isn't in my field of vision anymore. I have also turned off all my notifications on all social media platforms. I found that having a time when I decide to use the platform allows me to spend more uninterrupted time doing what I want than if I were to check notifications as I receive them. A huge factor of scrolling and a lot of mindless habits are reasons why you are there in the first place. Are you scrolling because you're anxious? Are you avoiding something else? Are you trying to feel connected? For me, a lot of the time I would go on a platform to scroll because I was too tired to do something else but didn't want to go to bed yet. I would use scrolling to kill time. I decided I didn't want to spend my time like this and would rather find a low maintenance activity I can enjoy instead. I will opt to watch a movie or TV show because it has substance. I will draw in my sketchbook or work on a project I'm doing. I find more fulfillment in doing things I enjoy when I'm bored than waiting until I'm not anymore. The act of scrolling itself is very mindless. It feels very disconnected from your body as the only part of it you're using is the single finger. Taking time to notice your body and move it around can bring you back into your body. If you have the time, try doing something that requires a little bit more movement than scrolling. Just stand up and stretch. Removing social media. Now for the big question: should you delete social media? And my answer is that is completely up to you. I have talked more about the cons of social media than I have the pros, but if I'm honest, I use it for quite a bit. I have an art account where I post videos of me making things, and this is almost impossible to do if I delete it entirely. I have found some compromises though. I removed Instagram and TikTok and pretty much all other social media apps that I could infinitely scroll on from my phone. That isn't to say I removed them from my life. I have an iPad where I have Instagram downloaded so I can, every now and then, check up on my messages, post some photos for my friends, and give myself a little cultural digest. How is this any different from using it on my phone, though? It is honestly just less available. I bring my phone everywhere. I use it to call the people I love, I use it to navigate to places, and I use it for music in my car. I use it for Pokemon Go and the Wordle. I would never say that Maps app on my phone is causing me harm. In fact, I would say it brings me so much convenience. Sometimes my parents will spout a list of directions at me to go somewhere, and it is in one ear and out the other. I love the CD player in my car, but I really enjoy not having to pay $20 to listen to an album for the first time. I love being able to connect with my friends through FaceTime and texting, and these things actually make me feel less isolated than if I went without them. And Pokemon Go is, I might have a problem with Pokemon Go, okay? It's fine. Not having Instagram on my phone, though, eliminates the temptation of being on it every moment. I want to be able to stand in line for 3 minutes without feeling the need to scroll. I want to be able to sit at dinner and have a nice conversation with the person I am with without feeling like something is trying to pull me away. And oh my god, I want to feel like I can go pee without needing a toy to keep me occupied. I don't bring my iPad everywhere, and I am usually hardly on it. Having a designated place where I am allowed to be on it has allowed me to get the best of both worlds without abusing one. If you have the luxury of being able to do this for yourself, I highly recommend it. My goal was to go on social media as little as possible, and I feel like this shift really allowed me to do so. If you have a bit more self restraint than I do, you can also try deleting the app and only downloading it once a week, or deleting it altogether and only using the web browser. It is so unusable, it will make you never want to go on Instagram again. Technology is an important aspect of my life, and in general, I really love the convenience of having it around. I hate feeling plagued by a constant grab at my attention just so I can be advertised to. I don't think disappearing off the internet is a good fit for me, nor I don't think letting the internet consume me is right either. I think most people fall within a happy medium of these two. I don't want anyone to feel like they are the only ones experiencing a screen addiction or even an unhappiness with how these platforms are influencing their lives because everyone around me has shared the same sentiment. It's okay to experiment with how much tech you want around you, and it's okay to take breaks away from it. The best you can do is find a solution that makes you feel fulfilled, not just pacified. Spend your time practicing making yourself happy. Bye.